What is up, the Catch fam? You already know what time it is, man. We are here to hop into Week 6 waiver wire additions for the 2021 fantasy football season. Let's hop right into it. But before we do, I do kindly ask that you guys go ahead and smash that like button, as it truly helps out the channel. And go ahead and subscribe, man, if you guys are not part of the Catch fam. We are on the road to 300 subscribers. We put out free daily fantasy content as well as NFL updates, NFL debate, and we have live streams several times a week with free fantasy Q&A. So go and become part of the Catch fam down below. And also down below, let me know in the comment section, who is your top waiver priority on the week? I am truly interested to know. And also let me know how these bye weeks are affecting you guys, man. This is the first week of the season where we've got some teams on bye. We got the Falcons, the Saints, the Jets, and the Niners. So you guys are definitely going to want to tune in for today's video. Nonetheless, let's hop into it, man. We have got so many running backs that we need to evaluate. All these tabs I currently have picked up are at the RB position. Look, man, A.J. Dillon played quite well versus the Bengals on Sunday. Rushed 8 times for 30 yards, had 4 targets, and caught all 4 of them for 49 yards and a touchdown. His touchdown was pretty legit, man. It was good work. And I mean, last week versus Pittsburgh, 81 rushing yards, 16 receiving yards, pretty solid stat line. And these numbers look a little bit better in full PPR as well. Listen, man, I think he's one of the best handcuff situations in the league. Just trying to keep Aaron Jones healthy throughout this long season, right? I think that A.J. Dillon is going to be very relevant. So I wouldn't expect these nice stat lines on a weekly basis. I think we might see, a little bit more of what we saw at the beginning of the season as well. But nonetheless, I think A.J. Dillon is worth owning. And I think he is definitely worth a waiver priority in terms of the bye weeks here. A lot of injuries out there to top running backs and things like that. So keep an eye on A.J. Dillon. All right. David Johnson, not the most exciting guy, but in deeper leagues, man, we can kind of expect David Johnson to be landing somewhere between 5 and 10 points on a weekly basis. We haven't seen him get a touchdown since week 1, so I do think he's relatively touchdown dependent. But nonetheless, I think he's worth keeping an eye on, as someone's got to kind of emerge in this revamped Houston Texans offense, so to speak, under our guy Mills at the quarterback position, right? Things are going to continue to change a little bit while Mills is out there. So don't get me wrong, the Texans ended up losing that football game yesterday versus the New England Patriots, but they played pretty well offensively after putting up a true goose egg versus Buffalo. So all I'm saying is keep an eye on David Johnson if you're really hurting in some of these deeper leagues. All right, Giovanni Bernard, someone who I wasn't feeling crazy about heading into week 5, ended up getting the score, right? I mean, a pretty solid stat line, his best stat line since we've, saw him play pretty well in week 3. So yeah, I do think he's relatively touchdown dependent, but at the same time, man, a lot of injuries out there, bye weeks out there, et cetera, man. If you've got extra roster room, I mean, this Buccaneers offense is beyond explosive. We want pieces of this offense on our fantasy rosters no matter what. So I do like Giovanni Bernard in full PPR and deeper leagues, but I would, have some caution here, as he is a little bit touchdown dependent. All right, Darrell Williams. Love this addition right now. Looks like the injury to Clyde was not as serious as many feared it was. It looked very bad when he went down in the Bills game. And listen, man, I know he didn't do a whole lot in relief last night for CEH, but listen, man, the Bills are one of the best defenses in all of football right now, and they are very, very good against opposing running backs. So I will say that I think he will look to improve on what he did in the next coming weeks. I mean, some pretty decent matchups. Washington's been pretty good up front, but their defense just looks like doo-doo, for lack of a better term. So I don't mind him versus Washington, don't mind him versus Tennessee or the New York Giants. Then we'll kind of see what happens after that. We don't have an exact timeline on CEH, but I like him in the upcoming weeks. And this Chiefs team needs some strong offensive performances and some victories. So I look for Williams to be very involved in the coming weeks. All right, Devontae Booker. Okay, this is a guy who I've heard mixed things on, right? I mean, he played very well in relief of Saquon Barkley versus Dallas. I mean, some people are arguing that these upcoming matchups are very tough, right? Which is fair. The Rams and the Panthers. So some people are arguing that he's not worth picking up, as maybe we'll see Saquon back by then. I mean, the ankle injury looked like Saquon had a foot growing out of the foot that was injured, but maybe it's not as bad as we thought it was, right? But I think nonetheless, just with How often we've seen Saquon deal with injuries. I think this handcuff is worth holding on to, just like Gallman last year was worth holding on to. I like this addition, actually. This is probably my top waiver priority at the position. And I think he's a true RB1 while Barkley is out. Don't be like me and, fear putting in a waiver for a guy like Williams when Montgomery went down. Because listen, there's got to be someone to take up that volume of a guy like Montgomery or Saquon Barkley, right? And Booker is going to be that guy. So I understand that the next two matchups are tough, and there's some hesitancy with Mike Glennon taking over for Daniel Jones at the time. But nonetheless, man, I like this waiver. I think Booker at the running back position is probably the top guy to go after. Okay, Sony Michel, another more of a handcuff situation, right? We've seen Henderson go down with more than one injury this year. I mean, he was able to come back in that game versus Seattle, but this is just a guy to keep an eye on as he's going to be facing the Giants, the Lions, the Texans, and Tennessee in the coming weeks, right? God forbid another injury to Henderson would make Sony Michel the RB1. So if you like chasing handcuff situations, I think Sony Michel is worth taking a look at. Ty Johnson, just a guy that we want to keep an eye on throughout this season. Although Michael Carter's starting to take away a lot of those carries and everything, he still performed pretty well getting into the end zone versus Atlanta. Tough matchup at New England, but then after that, kind of a mediocre stretch between Cincinnati, Indy, not including Buffalo, but Miami and Houston. So just keep an eye on Ty Johnson. He is still essentially splitting touches with Michael Carter, so I think he's worth just keeping an eye on at this point. Samaje Perine, I would say this is probably the top handcuff situation, probably right next to A.J. Dillon, right? Listen, he played fantastic in relief of Joe Mixon. He looked better than Joe Mixon. I guess it wasn't in relief of Joe Mixon as Mixon still played, but when Samaje Perine was out there, he looked like the better running back on the day. I like this situation for Samaje Perine. Once again, God forbid any other injuries to Joe Mixon, but this would be the top guy, and he's proven that he can play like an RB1 against a pretty decent defense in Green Bay. So if you like chasing handcuff situations, once again, I think Perine's worth taking a look at. All right, Khalil Herbert, I really like where he's at. I talked about this a little bit earlier in the week. Like maybe Williams won't be the guy, right? Maybe Damon Williams won't be the guy, but maybe Khalil Herbert will be the guy. And yeah, he rushed 18 times for 75 yards. If he had gotten the end zone, this would make the situation very, very difficult to determine who's going to be the RB1 in versus Green Bay for the Chicago Bears. So does have a couple tough matchups coming up, but I do think he's worth putting a waiver in for, especially in deeper leagues, but definitely just keep your eye on Khalil Herbert overall. All right, last running back we're going to talk about. I told you guys a lot of running backs this week. Ramondre Stevenson, right? We saw Damian Harris get a little banged up in that game versus Houston, right? Chest injury, already had the rib injury, and he fumbled, and Bill Belichick probably hates him for that. The New England Patriots have got Dallas and the Jets coming up. After that, it gets a little tough with the Chargers, Carolina, and Cleveland, but then a nice bounce back at Atlanta and Tennessee, and then ending it with another tough matchup versus Buffalo. But nonetheless, man, we really liked Ramondre Stevenson moving into the regular season, and I can see him potentially starting to take over this backfield, or at least getting a fair amount of those touches from Damian Harris. But nonetheless, there are some tough matchups coming up after the next 2 weeks. So I think these next 2 weeks will give us a strong sample size of what we need to see out of the New England Patriots backfield. But nonetheless, I don't know, man. I don't know if I trust Bill Belichick. I don't know if I trust New England Patriots backfield. We know historically they have been a backfield to stay away from a fantasy perspective, but we really like Stevenson moving into the season, and I will continue to monitor him overall. All right, we talked about a couple bye weeks, so I do think while there's not many quarterbacks out there at this point who you can really look at from a waiver priority, in terms of Sam Darnold probably already being gone, Danny Dimes, even though dealing with a concussion, probably already being gone in your league, excuse me. Trey Lance, if he's out there, yes, I think Trey Lance is absolutely worth picking up. Not the craziest performance or by any means in his debut, but overall, I do like where Trey Lance is at. He's got a bye week this week, so I don't think you need to panic too much, but I do think this is a quarterback who probably won't be available after this week. I do see a lot of teams putting in waivers for him, even though he's got a week 6 bye week. Some relatively tough matchups coming up: Indianapolis, Chicago, Arizona, and the Rams. But after that, a pretty nice stretch of Jacksonville, Minnesota. I mean, pretty good defense in Seattle, Cincy, pretty good, but Atlanta as well. So presuming that he is the starter, and let's see. Jimmy Garoppolo remains the starting quarterback when healthy. According to Kyle Shanahan, I don't know if I trust that man. I like Trey Lance right now. I think he's worth the waiver priority, although he has a bye week, especially if you're hurting at the QB position. Okay, another quarterback who's got a bye week this week is Matt Ryan, but he has kind of quietly put together two very nice stat lines against Washington and the Jets. He's got Miami coming up after the bye week, a pretty good matchup. A little bit of a tough stretch after that: Carolina, New Orleans, and Dallas, and New England as well. And wow, then he gets Jacksonville and Tampa Bay and Carolina. So it's a little bit of a tough road for Mr. Matt Ryan. But I do think that this Atlanta Falcons offense is starting to click a little bit. And I think he's worth taking a look at, especially in super flex leagues and deeper leagues as well. Okay, Taylor Heineke put up quite a bit of a bad week, right? But he's got Kansas City coming up, and I think if you're hurting at the QB position, or if you have a quarterback on bye week, that I still think you can trust Taylor Heineke, although this was a very bad performance versus New Orleans, very disappointing. No touchdowns whatsoever, 2 interceptions, but nonetheless, this Kansas City defense just got absolutely torched by Josh Allen and company, and I look for Heineke to have a good week 6 overall. Okay, and deeper leagues, right? Trevor Lawrence may be worth taking a look at, looking to face Miami here in week 6 in London. Once again, these London games, my thesis is that there's just going to be no defenses whatsoever showing up, although Atlanta's defense showed up all right versus the Jets. But I'm still sticking with that, and I still think overall that Trevor Lawrence in deeper leagues, super flex leagues, is probably worth a start here in week 6. One of his better stat lines, going by these points, his best stat line of the season, right? And I think in deeper leagues and super flex leagues, if you're hurting at QB this week, I like this matchup for Trevor Lawrence. But that's just about it for the quarterbacks. Let me know, guys, if there's any questions you guys have on quarterbacks out there, right? If you're hurting here in week 6, and overall, man, at this point in the season, you probably know who's available in your league and who's not. And just let me know if you guys have any questions on those quarterback decisions. All right, Quentin Cephas of the Lions moving on to the receivers. Not doing a whole lot, but let's talk about the other receivers for the Lions. Khalif Raymond, goose egg, right? 2 targets, 0 catches. We really thought Khalif or Quentin Cephas were going to be the guys, but let's talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown, looking like the guy in the last 2 weeks. He's got nice target share over the last 2 weeks. This is probably my top waiver priority in terms of a Lions wide receiver, but I'm still hesitant on this Lions offense from a receiver standpoint, as we haven't really been able to determine who's going to be the wide receiver 1. But if I had to pick one right now, I would move back to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I do think he's a good addition in full PPR if you are hurting at the receiver position. Let's talk about Kadarius Toney, guys, because I know this is the hot waiver addition at the receiver position, but I do have some concerns around adding Kadarius Toney. Okay, he is more than likely going to be suspended after throwing a punch at the end of the game yesterday, and I don't know for how long he will be suspended, but that definitely comes into factor here, right? Sterling Shepard is currently injured, Darius Slayton is currently injured, and now Kenny Golladay is currently injured. So if he wasn't being suspended, then I think this would be an absolute must-add. He is balling out over these last 2 weeks. Do not get me wrong, but I am still worried about the fact when Sterling Shepard comes back, when Darius Slayton comes back, and eventually when Golladay comes back, some of this production will go down. I think that the Giants have to continue to use Toney, so I don't think all of that production will be gone, but we don't know how long the suspension will be. Let's say it's 2 weeks, right? Well, we just have to keep an eye on what receivers are coming back and when. We also have to keep an eye on, is Danny Dimes throwing the football or is Mike Glennon throwing the football? So, on top of that, right, with the injury to Barkley, I'm a little bit concerned overall about this Giants offense and the way that they are going to continue to move forward. 2 tough matchups, the Rams and Carolina, like we discussed when we went over Devonta Booker, right? So I have some concerns. I do think some of this production will come down to some degree, but overall, I think the Giants have to continue to utilize Toney. He's played fantastic football over the 2 weeks, but I don't know if I would make this my top waiver priority, and I'm hurting at receivers in my 12-man league with my co-host Steven, right? But I just don't feel great about this addition. I might be wrong on this, guys, but I would move forward with some caution on Kadarius Toney. Okay, looking at some other guys out there, Randall Cobb put up quite a stinker of a game for those of you who started him, and I started him in my 20-man league. Listen, I'm going back and forth on this one. I do think we'll see more performances like we saw in week 4, but I think we'll see plenty of performances like we saw in week 1, week 2, and week 5. So I'd move forward with caution on Randall Cobb. Man, Zac Pascal available in this league. He might, I mean, this game versus Baltimore is going to determine how we feel about Pascal moving forward after having so many red zone targets in the first 2 weeks and then becoming droppable. Baltimore secondary has not played so great, and then he gets Houston, San Fran, Tennessee, the Jets, and Jacksonville before a tough matchup versus Buffalo. But after that, Tampa Bay and Houston, once again, I mean, we need to keep an eye on Zac Pascal by all means. All right. Kendrick Bourne didn't do a whole lot after 2 pretty solid weeks, so not feeling great about these New England Patriots wide receivers. Sidney Wilson in very deep leagues, I'm talking 16 plus leagues, closer to the 18 and 20 league mark, right? I mean, he had 2 scores again, or a score against Philly, score against Carolina, 2 scores in 2 consecutive weeks, and then he was kind of one of my sleepers on the week for week 5. Didn't have a great game overall. Didn't really need to the way the Cowboys played overall. A tough matchup in week 6 for the Cowboys, but I would still keep an eye on Sidney Wilson in very deep leagues. I do like some of his momentum that he's gained on the season. All right, Rashad Higgins was a hot waiver addition over the last week, and he played very well versus the Chargers in a bit of a shootout. Could see another shootout on the horizon in week 6 versus Arizona. So especially in deeper leagues, these Browns receiving core, or this Browns receiving core, I should say, dealing with some injuries and everything. I do like Rashad Higgins, excuse me, but we've seen him play very well in the past, become a waiver addition in the past before. So I do like Higgins, and I think he's worth keeping an eye on in addition in deeper leagues as well. Adam Humphries, man, a lot of injuries to the Washington football team's receiving core. So I would keep an eye on Adam Humphries. Put up a pretty nice stat line in full PPR versus the Saints yesterday. So yeah, I like where Adam Humphries is at in deeper leagues. And Darius Slayton, while we're here, man, keep an eye on him. If he's coming back soon, then maybe worth an addition, especially in deeper leagues as well. Very poor coverage by me on Darius Slayton there. But yeah, keep an eye on him. Chris Conley of the Texans putting up pretty nice numbers versus New Orleans. We've seen Conley play very well in the past for the Jaguars, so I don't mind this addition in deeper leagues. But also, I mean, Chris Moore, I've gotten some questions on. Also put up a very nice stat line. He balled out versus New England. So don't know how much I trust this Houston Texans offense. Don't know how much I trust these receivers, but keep an eye on both Chris Conley and Chris Moore, both the Chris's out there in Houston. Outside of that, man, not a lot of names. Maybe a James Washington. Okay, Juju Smith-Schuster is out for the season with a shoulder injury that will need surgery. James Washington's been a little bit banged up himself. These Pittsburgh Steelers receivers have been banged up all season. But listen, Ben Roethlisberger loves James Washington. They have a good chemistry, and I do believe he will fill in very nicely as the receiver 3 behind Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson, especially in deeper full PPR leagues. I do think James Washington is worth an addition and keeping an eye on as long as he is fully healthy. Okay, outside of that, I don't believe I have any other receivers to go over for the week. We'll take a quick scroll through, and yeah, I got no one else left for you guys. All right, tight end position, then we'll finish off the video. Make sure you guys tune in for Steven's must start defensive streams / defensive starts. He will go over any potential defenses to add, so make sure you guys keep tuned for that video as well. And if you guys are enjoying today's content, go and smash that like button, man, as it truly does help out the video. All right, let's top it off with tight ends, man. Hunter Henry looking like he's emerging as the Patriots top tight end, and Mac Jones needs a top tight end, right? He needs some more targets out there. He's played very well over the last 2 weeks, at least 1 touchdown in the last 2 weeks. He gets Dallas and then the Jets. couple tough matchups after that, right? Chargers, Carolina, Cleveland, but nonetheless, another nice stretch for the Patriots against Atlanta and Tennessee from a fantasy perspective before Week 13 Buffalo matchup. We don't like that too much, but nonetheless, man, I like Hunter Henry in the coming weeks. If you guys are hurting at the tight end position, maybe George Kittle is causing you, some issues with that injury, right? And also being on bye week, right, for the Niners. So I like Hunter Henry. I think he's worth the addition if guys like Dawson Knox aren't out there or Dalton Schultz are out there. I mean, those two guys are definitely should be rostered in all fantasy leagues at this point. But if the tight end pickings are pretty slim, then I think Hunter Henry is a good direction to go. David Njoku, I've got a little bit of hesitation on, right? A good game in week 1, then 3 weeks worth of stinkers. Barely any points put up in those 3 weeks, but a huge game versus the Chargers, man. I mean, he was targeted 7 times. He did catch all of them. If you're really hurting at tight end and it's a deeper league, I think you can pull the trigger here and go in and take a chance on David Njoku, but just understand from the sample size that we have through 5 weeks, he's been very inconsistent from a fantasy perspective. So I would use caution, but in deeper full PPR leagues, I think this is worth a shot. CJUSMA, right? We were really excited about him after week 4, but I did move into week 5, and I told you guys move forward with a lot of caution. We need a larger sample size. Had a fantastic performance in week 4, but put up quite a stinker in week 5. So I'm still using caution on CJUSMA. All right. Tyler Conklin, another guy I told you guys to have caution on after week 3. And yeah, after the sample size, we have not seen a whole lot play out. And now this week 6 matchup looks pretty bad versus Carolina. Zach Ertz, though. I am a fan of Zach Ertz, right? I told you guys keep an eye on him after the last 2 weeks. And yeah, he put up a stinker against Carolina, but Carolina is quite good defensively, although the Eagles played quite good against Carolina, right? But Tampa Bay coming up, then Vegas, then Detroit. I like these coming matchups for Zach Ertz, and I would definitely keep an eye on him, especially in full PPR leagues that are also a little bit deeper. Dan Arnold, man. Dan Arnold, right, playing relatively well since going to the Jaguars, right? I mean, not as much in that first game versus Cincinnati, but looks like Trevor Lawrence and him have some chemistry in the red zone. Gets Miami this week. In deep leagues, 16-man leagues plus, full PPR, maybe roll the dice here, but we do want to see a larger sample size as he only has 1 touchdown on the season. All right, Ricky SealsJones, man. I like where he's at, okay? Pretty good game yesterday, at least in terms of full PPR. Caught 5 of 8 targets. I mean, someone's got to take that volume from Logan Thomas while he's out due to an injury, right? So I like where he's at in deep leagues, full PPR leagues. I mean, if he can get a couple touchdowns sprinkled in here, I mean, we've already seen him score a touchdown in week 2, right? While Logan Thomas was still around. So I don't hate this addition, but once again, we're moving forward with caution if you do put in this waiver claim. All right, there's 2 other guys that in super deep leagues I want to at least mention. I'm talking probably just 20-man leagues here. But Darnold Parham, man, has got a touchdown in the last 2 weeks. I mean, you guys know I own Jared Cook in my 20-man league. And I like this coming matchup versus Baltimore, but this is once again at 100% a touchdown-dependent tight end. But he's looked to be on a good pace, so maybe just keep an eye on Darnold Parham. If we, God forbid, see any injuries to Jared Cook, which you guys know I do not need in my 20-man league, but this would be the tight end 1, and he looks like he's proven himself. So he's very athletic, and I do want to keep an eye on him for the rest of the season. All right, last guy I want to talk about kind of on the flip side of things when looking at that Darren Arnold trade, right? Tommy Tremble is the tight end 1 for the Panthers. Did get a score in week 5. It had a pretty good stat line in week 3 as well, although he had that rushing touchdown, which was kind of random, but a couple pretty good matchups. Minnesota, the Giants, Atlanta coming up, right? I mean, Minnesota actually playing quite well defensively, but they tend to not do as well in the secondary. But nonetheless, man, I would keep an eye on Tommy Tremble as he tight end 1 for the Panthers. We finally saw the Panthers come down to earth versus the Eagles in a 3-point loss, but nonetheless, Sam Darnold come back to earth. Maybe it would be the better way to phrase that. But I would keep an eye on Tommy Tremble in very deep leagues. I do look for him to continue to improve as the season progresses. All right, guys, there you have it. There are my week 6 waiver wire additions, waiver wire mania, whatever we want to call it, man. I think I got through everyone that I wanted to. If you guys have any other waiver wire additions you think I missed, please drop them in the comments down below. And like I asked at the beginning of the video, please let me know who is your top waiver priority moving into week 6. We're genuinely interested to know. And if you guys have any questions around waiver additions or any questions around your 2021 fantasy football roster, please let us know in the comments down below. We will respond to every single comment. If you guys enjoyed today's video, please go and smash that like button, as it truly gives us that little boost in the YouTube algorithm. And of course, man, we are on the road to 300 subscribers here at The Catch. Go and subscribe down below, as we put out free daily fantasy content, as well as NFL debate, NFL updates, and more. And guys, stay tuned for our weekly live streams. Go ahead and hit that notification bell so you guys don't miss a single video. And as always, I thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch.